Coming up on Tech News Today, Google and Apple strike music deals, possibly. ABC counts all eyeballs equally. Way to go, ABC. And Windows Phone rises in rebellion. All that more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, March 6th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, and now an online store. Check out their new commerce solution so you can start selling stuff immediately. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use offer code TNT3. And by Ring Central. We do everything in the cloud. That's why we love our cloud-based phone system by Ring Central. Zero startup costs, and Ring Central is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone, get a second phone free up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world. Put them in context for you, starting with the top 10 of the day in The Fuse, the news. As expected, European officials have fined Microsoft an amount of $731 million U.S. for breaking promises made when the European Commission's Competition Directorate agreed to close an investigation in 2009. Microsoft failed to offer a browser choice screen in a Windows 7 Service Pack update between May 2011 and July 2012 in violation of that agreement.
Reuters reports that Apple CEO Tim Cook held informal talks with Beats Electronics, the audio tech firm co-founded by Dr. Dre and music mogul Jimmy Iovine, on a potential partnership. This is according to 3 different sources. Cook and Beats CEO Iovine reportedly met during a visit to LA last month to find out more about Beats Project Daisy, a music subscription service that the company announced in January. Could be a smart move on Apple's part, for, as Tim Cook undoubtedly knows, when you diss Dre, you diss yourself.
True.
Remember when Microsoft said that a copy of Office 2013 would be locked down to the machine you installed it on? Well, Microsoft has done an about-face in hopes of calming the masses. Microsoft says if you buy a copy of Office 2013, you'll be able to transfer the software to a different machine.
Want free broadband in your house? You got it. Freedom Pop has launched their home broadband service for free, just $89. I mean, that's just for the hardware, but then it's free. It's WiMAX, but did we mention free and up to 1 gigabyte? Well, you can buy 10 gigabytes of monthly usage for $10, but free mostly.
Yesterday, Microsoft kicked off Tech Fest, a research fair for the company's engineers to show off their visions for the future, like one from senior researcher Michael Pahud, who demonstrated how users can interact with a large screen display. So when a user approaches with a Windows phone, say, the phone syncs with the display. When the user's very close to the display, the phone shows the palette options. Farther away, the phone goes into remote control mode with a keyboard, so the user can search and control via his or her voice.
Tomorrow, Facebook is holding a press event to show off a new news feed. TechCrunch says it already knows what to expect. With the revamped news feed, you'll be able to filter what content you see. You'll have the option to see top stories, photos, or music as separate streams. TechCrunch also reports that image-based ads are coming to Facebook, both on the web and on mobile platforms.
Sharp confirmed that Samsung will invest 10.4 billion yen, that's roughly $112 million US, to buy a 3.08% stake and gain greater access to Sharp's display technology. Samsung's already a customer for Sharp's LCDs, but this will strengthen that relationship and reduce Sharp's dependence on Apple as a customer. Han Hai may also invest in Sharp. The Samsung deal is expected to go through March 28th.
Roku has announced its next-generation streaming set-top box, the $100 Roku 3. It's got a few things: faster processor, updated interface, and a remote control with a headphone jack that turns off the volume of the TV, routes it through the jack, allowing a user to watch content privately, or at least quietly. The Roku 3 also has made cross-app search part of its core functionality.
HTC announced its monthly consolidated revenues, and the news still is not good, HTC fans. HTC's February revenue was the lowest in 3 years, dropping 44% year over year to a mere $384 million US. HTC's newest phone, the HTC One, launches March 15th, and it better be the one or HTC's in trouble.
Unlocking your cell phone without carrier permission may become legal in the United States. Senator Ron Wyden introduced a bill called the Wireless Device Independence Act that would allow consumers to unlock cell phones for interoperability purposes. The bill already has the support of Vermont's Senator Patrick Leahy. Meanwhile, in the House, Representative Jason Chaffetz is creating similar legislation.
Unlock. This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it easy to create a professional website. We talk all the time about how Squarespace is easy to make galleries. It resizes the photos so that they look good on whatever size screen somebody's using to look at your website. They have these brilliant templates that make you look like you're graphically not challenged like I am. They're gorgeous templates. You can tweak them a little so that they don't look cookie cutter, but they also are mobile responsive so they look right on any screen. And the big new thing from Squarespace is Squarespace Commerce, a flexible and powerful e-commerce solution that's integrated to work with that Squarespace template I was just talking about and allows you to sell physical or digital goods. You can sell music CDs or MP3s, hardcover books or ebooks. Fast merchant account setup so you can accept payments right away as soon as you get started. You can start bringing in those credit or debit cards, and one interface for order management. So you can do all those things like tracking orders, providing customer email updates, print shipping labels, add coupons. Squarespace Commerce is part of the new business plan subscription, which starts at $24 a month. And when you sign up for a year, that's what you get, or $30 a month if you just want to go month to month. But you don't have to pay anything to try all this stuff out. For a free trial, go to squarespace.com, sign up for a free account. You don't need to give them any credit card information. Just start building your website. And if you decide to purchase, use the offer code TNT3. Remember that code and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, monthly or annual. Don't forget, annual plans, you get a free domain registration if you need it. That's a pretty good value. So that's squarespace.com. Use that offer code TNT3, everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank Squarespace for their continuing support of Tech News Today. Go thank them yourselves. Let them know, hey, we appreciate you keeping that show on the air. If you like the show, that is. Joining us today, Brian Heater, senior editor at Engadget.com. Welcome to the show, Brian. Great to have you, man.
Hi, thanks. Brought to you by Skype. Try Skype.
I think we got rid of the bug. Before the show, we had a Skype bug showing up on Brian's feed. Did we get rid of it?
Yeah, we got rid of it. Now. Yeah, it's gone.
It's still really
I just want to say Skype is great, and it's never given anybody any problems ever. Try it.
You can't see the carefully placed gun off screen. Let's start off talking about music. We got a lot of music news today. Starting with Google striking a deal with Warner Music. Now I'm confused. Earlier it was Google Music, then it was YouTube Music. Now it's Google Music again. What's the story, Sarah?
Well, yeah. So yesterday I kind of went, oh, okay. Google wants to start music streaming service that applies to YouTube. That makes sense because there's so much music on YouTube already. Well, Billboard reported yesterday that Google has struck a deal with Warner Music, and that gives Google rights for 2 services it's working on. One that's part of Google's Android music platform, Google Play, and the other that's part of YouTube. Now, All Things D is separating. Peter Kafka wrote a nice article that separated why the 2 services made sense to be separate and to have music licensing agreements on both. Android music service, that makes sense, right? Music is a big part of mobile. Why let, the Spotifys and the Pandoras get all of the users? There's a market there already. People are already paying for it. On the YouTube side, though, YouTube wants to collect the rights to sell music for both audio and video via subscriptions. The problem is that it's still unclear to the music owners and to the rest of us what YouTube wants to do with those rights. Now, if Warner's in, that's certainly a step in the right direction. Sources say Universal is, it's going to take some time. Sony is still waffling on this. And Google needs a buy-in from everybody, and not just sort of the big 3, Warner, Universal, and Sony, but people who own the publishing rights, the compositions for each song. And that's not always the same people, especially internationally. So it gets pretty complicated. Apparently, YouTube content head Robert Hinkle is representing Google in all of its talks. The stuff, that applies to Android, that stuff that applies to YouTube. So I guess in that sense, there is some cohesive thread to all of this. The same person's probably going to lay down all of these deals. Brian, I'll kick it over to you. Does it make sense for Google to be aggressively pursuing deals not only for its Android arm but also for its YouTube arm?
Yeah, I mean, why not? If they're all housed in the same family, why not just have lawyers kind of go after a package deal for all these things at the same time? Certainly, it's easier in that respect. And from the sound of it, these are two very different services. You've got one that's a direct Spotify competitor. Again, makes sense to have that baked into the larger Google Play platform. So if you're a Google Play user, you've got a built-in subscription service. And then there's a lot of things that make sense on the YouTube side as well. We're talking about, which they've been doing a little bit, licensing soundtracks for your videos. So, having a drop-down menu that you can pull from and get some music that way. They've also got a pretty interesting revenue platform set up right now where if you do have a song on your video, whether or not it's legal, you'll see a link drop down to Amazon, to iTunes. Why not actually, sell that directly through Google and make a few bucks on the back end?
Tom, does this make sense to you? I mean, yesterday, I think I jumped ahead a little bit saying, oh, this is a YouTube thing. But it sounds like Google's smart enough to want to split these two up.
Yeah, it does. It kind of makes sense. YouTube and Google are two different things, so it makes sense to provide a service that is tailored to what that audience does well. And I was having a hard time wrapping my head around the idea of well, YouTube already has music videos there that you can stream. So I guess they need a few more licenses if they want to be more flexible with that. But a Google Music streaming service makes more sense to me as a Google service that then is available on Android, et cetera, et cetera. So this does seem to clear up some of the confusion if it's true, and it looks like if it's true that they struck a deal with Time Warner, that this is for real and it's on its way.
I mean, this isn't Scream of Chrome OS and Android. There's really I don't understand why you'd want to split this out if you're going to have one solution. Or you're going to be able to rent stuff from Google with your Google Wallet. Are you paying YouTube or are you paying Google Music? I don't know if this is the greatest strategy for Google to say, okay, we have some features over here, we got some over here, you'll have to figure it out, and we love informing the consumer of what to get when you're playing with your music. It just seems like siloing within Google, which I think is a little strange. I know YouTube is separate, but I mean, Google had the wisdom to go, Google Video, yeah, we got to kill that because YouTube is where it's supposed to be. This is our future. But maybe Google Play and YouTube need to just mash up at some point, because if you have separate features and separate divisions, I think the consumer is the one that loses.
I think there's just a lot of confusion happening right now. Again, and a lot of this comes down to the fact that they've got the same lawyer dealing with the same rights, and that just has to do with the fact that they're owned by the same company. But we're seeing two very different case usages here. I think originally a few days ago when people were trying to wrap their heads around this, they thought maybe YouTube would be the kind of venue for the subscription-based service. But from the sound of it, from what we're hearing now, and obviously we're not really going to know anything for sure until Google comes out and announces this, but from the sound of it, there's not a heck of a lot of overlap. As you said, they've got music videos on there, but those rights, the money being made off of those are generally going to the record label. Google's making a little bit of money off of advertising, but again, why not be the platform to give people the download link for that? So why not let people download that directly through Google?
That's why it seems to make sense to me. But again, we'll have to see how they roll it out, because it may be more confusing than Brian and I are thinking. It may be more like what Ayaz is saying. Meanwhile, Apple's not resting. Apparently, Apple's Tim Cook had a informal meeting with Jimmy Iovine. Ayaz, when they have an informal meeting, does that mean no ties? What does that mean?
It means that they're just having some high-level talks. Nothing is definitive yet, but Reuters was reporting that Apple held talks with Beats on a potential partnership involving Beats' planned music streaming service. The talks were held between Tim Cook and the Beats CEO, Jimmy. How do you say his name? Is it Iovine? Iovine.
It's Iovine. I only know that because I've watched American Idol.
So Jimmy Iovine was talking to Tim Cook, and I don't know if they were wearing ties or not, quite honestly. I don't think Reuters reported that or not.
I should hope not.
Iovine is also the chairman of Interscope, Geffen, and A&M. Beats announced a subscription service back in January called Project Daisy. This secured $60 million in funding from investors, including the owner of Warner Music. And Beats' Project Daisy would launch sometime in late 2013. Brian, do you think that Apple, theoretically, if this is true, would partnering with Beats make more sense than rolling out their own service? Because what could that partnership yield that Apple couldn't do on its own?
Yeah, this is another sort of backroom thing that I'm having a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around. I should also say, as a point of giving some context to people, they may know Jimmy from all those 50 Cent songs that he's name checked in.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they're bringing to the table. You know, obviously, for the most part, we're seeing hardware from them. You know, they've got their own headphone lines. They're working with HTC. I'm a little bit shocked that we didn't see a subscription service from Apple a long time ago. That would have made sense after the Lala acquisition, for one thing. What actually came out of that was Ping, which I don't know. I think it's still around. I could be wrong.
No, it's gone.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would have made sense back then. You know, certainly it would have made sense for Apple to really get in the market to completely brand this up when people were still fully in the iTunes ecosystem. It's kind of gone away. I don't know. You know, I generally assume that I'm not an average consumer for this sort of thing, but you know, I know I for one have gone pretty heavily towards, you know, Spotify, RDO, things like that. And then when it comes to downloading, I'm using Amazon a lot. You know, it's half the price. So this seems like something it would have made sense for them to get into a few years ago. I guess the one way I can think that a partnership would make sense is if Beats is essentially doing all the heavy lifting for the company and Apple can just sort of come in and leverage all the work they've already done.
Sarah, Apple's really not known for partnering as much as they just acquire and then tear apart or just consume what they are looking at. Do you think that Apple these days under Tim Cook would be more likely to have a working partnership with a company like Beats?
Possibly. You know, Apple's... I mean, on one hand, I think who could be better at negotiating than Apple, right? I mean, they've got all the money in the world. They can hire all the best people to make deals like this happen. But Apple's also got its hands full. You know, from everything that we're hearing, this is a really pivotal year for the company. And maybe Tim Cook is like, you know what? This is not really our strong suit. We want to get into the music industry from a different avenue than we've already kind of conquered. I mean, if you think of iTunes as some sort of conquering of the music industry, and maybe he feels like these guys have the history with music labels in order to do that heavy lifting. The whole thing sounds weird to me. I don't really see Apple acquiring Beats Audio. It just seems like an unlikely union, but what do I know?
Tom, what do you make of this meeting? Are people just blowing this out of proportion, or is this could be the beginning of something?
You know, I think this is probably the beginning of something. Jimmy Iovine is definitely in the center of things, and all props to Brian for the more appropriate 50 Cent reference for knowing Iovine over my lame American Idol reference. But he is central. He is a guy that makes things happen, and so I think that's why a lot of people are taking notice on both sides, because we see, oh, Tim Cook, Apple, okay, that's big, that's the CEO. People in the music industry are like, oh, Iovine, now he's a guy who's a mover and shaker. He's a guy. He was at the All Things D conference, kind of explained the history of the music industry from his perspective. It was really interesting. So if anybody can make a deal happen, it's these guys. I agree that I don't know whether this is as big of a win for Apple now as it would have been, say, you know, back 2 years ago, or as Brian mentioned, right after they purchased Lala.
And some folks in the chat room were discussing how, you know, Apple does have a bit of partnerships with companies like Nike. They're not necessarily like touting that much, but you are seeing Apple working with a lot of companies. I think it'd be interesting if they actually did have Beats do all the work, and they're like, you know what, the streaming component is brought to you by Beats, and you'll just see the Beats logo in your iTunes or your iOS devices, like they used to work with Google, old days. Remember the good old days when Google was all over iOS?
Yeah, well, you know, they're still there as the default search engine, right?
Still.
Actually, it leads us right into our next story, which is, what is Apple going to do? There have been increasingly rumblings of dissatisfaction with Apple. The stock price has been falling. Apple stock remains the biggest loser for the year to date among large cap S&P 500 firms. In fact, among those with a certain level of revenue, Apple is the only one that's declined since January 1st. UBS analyst Steve Milinovich sent out a note to its clients titled "Identity Crisis. Can Apple Play Defense?" saying that what analysts are looking for are cheaper products, which Apple doesn't do. They don't do bargain products. Copycat products like, oh, you need to make a bigger screen iPhone because there's all these big screen Android phones. Apple doesn't do that as much either. Or new markets. That's where Apple has been successful. Create reinvent the smartphone market, reinvent the tablet market, reinvent the music player market if you go far enough back. Milinovich says the only way out might be innovation in new categories, which will require investor patience. Most companies would rush out a 5 to 6 inch iPhone. Apple probably won't. I just want to go around the horn with this. What should Apple do, and what do you think they will do? Brian, let's start with you.
Well, they're always kind of in a tricky place before a new product announcement comes out. Certainly every time one of these devices has come out, they've had their share of detractors and have pretty consistently, with a few exceptions, proved people wrong. Everything is amplified right now because they've got a new CEO, and the person who really has led them to that innovation, or at least kind of brought the Apple name out of the muck a number of times, isn't with the company anymore. And I think what it's going to take is a big, new, innovative product that's really, if not be the first of its kind, certainly help reinvigorate a space. That's what they've been best at doing in the past. So yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be something really, really big, and they're going to have to prove that they can still be, really innovative post Steve Jobs, because pretty much what we've seen up to this point has been just iteration of existing lines.
And it is fair to say that Apple doesn't play the market. They don't. I mean, yeah, they did an iPad Mini, but they had their own justifications for that. They don't usually just rush out and fill a niche because a bunch of Android phones are selling in that niche. But Sarah, do you think they should?
I don't know. I mean, I hate to say this because obviously I'm like an Apple fangirl and everything, but it's true. Apple does need some kind of, hey, we're doing something different. We've got a new product. It's innovative. It's a slam dunk. We're now setting ourselves apart from the pack. Apple is not apart from any pack right now. They're very dominant in the tablet market still, but that number is going to continue to decline. The stock price is falling because you've got all these people saying, well, there's nothing wrong with the iPhone, but the next iPhone is just going to look like this iPhone, and it's not going to be different enough, and it's just going to be faster and better camera, and that's not exciting enough. We need a new product. So, yeah, I mean, something like, the Apple TV rumors have quieted down because now everybody's talking about this iWatch. And I think, no matter what it is, it has to be something that sets Apple away from the pack, because that's, over the last 10 years, how Apple became the huge company that it is now.
Ayaz, you and Tim Cook are having an informal meeting at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Jimmy Iovine just left. What do you tell him?
I tell them to keep doing what they used to do, which is simple. If you keep reacting to the market, that's going to lead you to that whole Gil Amelio style. We're going to have thousands of variations of each thing, and that's not a good idea. What Apple's about, and it always has been, what made it different was, what do the consumers want before they want it? This concept of reacting to the market and then potentially like talking to focus groups, this is not what made Apple successful in the first place. But one of the downsides about Apple in general is that they were so ahead. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, they said they were 5 years ahead of everybody. It's been 5 years and everybody's caught up. But Apple hasn't come out with a product that has done the same, because they're no longer this little scrappy underdog. They're the big dominant player in the tablet space, and they were the dominant player in the phone space. It's just what market can you go into, or how do you just keep your lead? I think what Apple's got it as an advantage is its ecosystem. They have lock-in. People don't want to leave. You have the applications, the familiarity. So you're going to have to come up with some crazy new product that's 5 years ahead of everybody else, because right now everyone's caught up with you.
Yeah, there was sort of a possibly unfounded faith in Steve Jobs when he was there, and now it's the opposite. Without Steve Jobs, everyone has lost faith that Apple can continue to make the next miracle. Brian, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't think that listening to consumers and being completely innovative are necessarily mutually exclusive. I think one of the nice things that's happened since Tim Cook took over was this move to a larger screen iPhone. I mean, that was something that Steve Jobs said very expressly, that people don't want a bigger phone, and then Tim Cook came in. It looks like they're listening to consumers a little bit more. So I think that if they can strike a happy medium between the two, continue to be innovative, continue to look towards new spaces, but still react to the market, react to consumers a little bit, I think that's the best place to be in right now.
And one of those markets might be TV. We're going to talk about what people that aren't Apple are doing in that market in just a second. But I want to thank our other sponsor for today's show, Ring Central. Whether you're starting out a new office or maybe you're in an old office that you're like, we really need to replace this phone system, you definitely want to take a look at Ring Central. One of the reasons we use it at Twit is because we didn't have to spend a lot of time and money putting a PBX system in. If you don't know what that is, don't find out. It's a lot of trouble is what it is. Get your phone system in the cloud with Ring Central. You still get a desk phone. It's wireless. It's great, but you can also get your voicemail and your email. You can also send faxes to the phone, to that phone number and read them online. And now they have a new feature, Business SMS. You can send text messages to customers and colleagues from your business phone number. You don't have to use your personal phone number. Ring Central offers all-inclusive pricing as low as $20 a month per user, and you can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial. That's how easy it is to put in. They'll give you 30 days to try it out. In case you don't like it, it's easy to take out, too. They have a special offer for our listeners. When you buy one desk phone, you get a second phone free up to 20 phones. So call this number. Try it out. It's designated for our listeners. Here's the number, 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. They make me repeat it 3 times just so you don't complain that you didn't hear it. 800-543-9980. Or, of course, most of us probably just going to go to ringcentral.com and use the promo code TWIT. That's ringcentral.com, promo code TWIT. Really thank Ring Central for their support of Tech News Today. All right, new Roku. First one in a while. The Roku 3 is out. What's the scoop with it, Ayaz?
It launched last night. I saw it blowing up on Twitter. So everyone seemed to really excited about it. It's available now. It's $99. Set-top box. It's got a brand new interface. Instead of that old bar-style menu, we just see like 5 or 6 channels at a time. You get a grid showing you 9 channels at a time with a menu bar on the left with your channels, the channel store, search function, and settings. Now, search and settings were already in the Roku experience, but it's now always there on the left side when you have that front screen. In the video demo, it looked really snappy because it has a new processor. Roku says it's 5 times faster than the Roku 2 XS. It's got dual band Wi-Fi. For output, HDMI, it's got Ethernet, USB, no analog output anymore. So if you want analog, you got to go to a different Roku. The Roku 3 remote has private listening mode, which lets you plug in headphones to it. So when you do that, you can listen to whatever the Roku is streaming from the headphones, in your headphones, and the audio is muted to your television. And the remote uses Wi-Fi Direct, so there's no line of sight necessary, which is actually really helpful if you're trying to listen to private listening mode. And the new interface, by the way, is coming to the current generation of Rokus in April. So if you have the Roku 2 or the XS or whatever those things are, you'll be able to get this. Brian, people seem psyched on Twitter about this when I was looking at this. Are you excited about this at all?
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. I was dreading all the TV talk today because I've been one of those sort of lame without TV folks for about a decade now. So maybe today was not the best day. But yeah, I mean this. As you said, it was long awaited. I think it's been about 2 years since they've had a refresh. The hardware seems nice. One of the interesting things about it is I think that it's actually heavier than the last version, so it doesn't get kind of moved around by your HDMI cables.
I hate that too, yeah.
Yeah, and
like the head of a snake.
The interface. The interface seems great. It seems really quick. Obviously they needed to update the insides a little bit here. It's nice that they're updating everybody across the line. I'd like to see that. I like to see companies supporting older boxes. But really, the most interesting thing here, as you said at the end there, is that the remote with the headphone jack on it. I mean, this seems to be them kind of compensating for the popularity of the tablet. The tablets give people a chance to have private watching. What if there was a way that you could do that kind of sort of private, but still have that on the large screen?
I can't tell you how many times I've wanted something like this, particularly now, like, when my 3-year-old daughter goes to bed at 8, I want to watch something at 10, and, the TV's all the way over there, and I want to watch it on my TV and not on my laptop. The headphone thing is awesome. I think that's brilliant. That needs to be a more thing.
Well, there's that, and it already has like a Pandora station. It's got music applications, and I was always like, why would I leave my TV on to listen to music? This makes a lot more sense. You can walk around the house with it.
Yeah.
Tom, there's a lot of press on the search features, which I believe that is available on the previous version, just not as built in as this. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the search feature on the current version, which is now the old version, it just isn't as nicely integrated as this. I feel like this takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails of the Western Digital TV box, because one of the advantages it did have was the interface was nicer than the Roku interface. And now Roku said, hey, we got an awesome interface now. We make the search work better, and you can put, you know, multiple icons on the screen at once now instead of that long strip that they've had ever since launch. Even back when they were just the Netflix box, it was just the Netflix icon in the middle, right? It's always been that. So it's nice to see them tweak that finally. And if it's faster, my original Roku box is faster than the current Western Digital TV Play box. So making this faster at $99, only about $20 more expensive than the Play. This is really compelling. I think this is going to be a hit.
Sarah, you're big into Apple TV. What do you think of the design refresh for the Roku 3? Because it's totally different than what it used to be.
Yeah, it is. And that was my main complaint. I've said it on the show before, is the Roku box is great, but I don't like the UI at all. And just having something as simple as accessibility to 9 different apps visually in one place rather than 5, it's kind of got, I don't even really think it's more of an Apple TV interface, just a better one where you can see more of the apps that you're going to use is really, really helpful because I actually have a lot of Roku apps and it's nicer to see all of them in one place. I love the cross-app search functionality. That's not actually something that I've taken a lot of advantage of in the past. But imagine, you know, if you're interested, you know, if you're a cord cutter and you're interested in watching a certain show and you just want to look for something, it's really nice to be able to quickly type in, you know, Battlestar Galactica and see what your options are as far as the different apps that will pull that for you. So great innovation. You know, the hardware itself doesn't sound, I know it's a little heavier. It's like, I'm not really all that impressed with how it looks. And I don't think Roku was going for anything significantly different. I think for most of us, we're kind of just trying to hide them in a media console anyway. But the software UI is huge. And even if I'm not going to buy one, if I can, you know, refresh my software UI in April and have the same functionality, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I love the big tile interface. Seems like tiles are the future. Just have
yes.
big grids.
Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Knew that.
You know, one of the things you need a Roku for is watching the video that you're not paying for on cable. But one of the problems is the model up to now has been for the networks to say, no, we want to force you to watch cable. So we're going to make you pay for Hulu Plus if you watch it on a Roku, or we're going to restrict what actually even gets put on the pay version of Hulu Plus or our ABC.com app, or we're not going to put an app on the Roku because we don't want people. Well, that may all be going away. We talked about Nielsen ratings coming to online viewing, especially for your TV, but by the end of the year, tablets as well. Now, ABC is the first to take advantage of this. ESPN and ABC Family are using it in a limited way, but ABC, the network in the United States, is going to sell programs as something called ABC Unified. So all platforms, TVs, computers, tablets, and smartphones, eventually, will have one ad buy, one audience guarantee, a breakdown of a show's total audience combined across all those platforms. Now, why do you care about that? That probably sounds like boring advertising gobbledygook. Why you care is that now it doesn't matter what screen you watch. Now there's no more vested interest for ABC to say, no, we really want to push you to watch it on cable because that's where we're Nielsen rated and we're going to make more money. If they can have a unified ad buy, it takes away one more barrier where it no longer makes sense for them to delay things. If you're watching their show and seeing their ads, you're watching their show and seeing their ads. So what do you think will mess this up, Reyes? I'm feeling like this is an idealistic future. It can't be all roses,
What'll
right?
mess it up? Okay, I'll try to figure out what could make this awful. I would imagine that maybe advertisers want this broken out, like who watched what when and on what platform, and then they
will have it broken out because it's 2 different packages.
They'll do that, and they'll be like, tell you what, we're going to pay you less for this and less for that, and then ABC will have incentive to air stuff earlier and then there'll be a window. That's how it'll be awful. But I don't want to think about such awful things. I just hope this works out okay, and they try to just go, okay, you know what, an eyeball's an eyeball. If you have an engaged audience, that's a real thing. The other thing about online ads is that they're much more interactive. I mean, you could buy things. I'm kind of curious if there could be a premium on online advertising because you do have interactivity as opposed to watching TV and going, oh, I can Shazam this song right now, but they have no idea that you're actually doing that.
Yeah, hopefully what they say is that eyeball's an eyeball, and so we're going to charge you the same no matter what, even if the numbers are broken out. Brian, do you feel optimistic about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually, and I probably shouldn't say this because Nielsen is actually located in the same building that we're in right now, but it always seemed to like this kind of antiquated system, you know, kind of a remnant from the past where the way they were measuring engagement was just taking this really small section. So, they would put like black boxes in people's houses. There would be these Nielsen families, and they would use that as kind of a metric across the board. It's nice to see them getting into new spaces. It's nice to see them, moving towards online stuff, moving towards tablets. Because this could mean that maybe, I don't know, maybe breaking it out isn't such a bad idea, because maybe they'll actually invest more money into online, rather than just having sort of second run stuff. Again, as somebody, I'm speaking from a standpoint of somebody who again doesn't have a TV. I hate to be that guy at this party, but it'd be nice to have a lot of original content. It'd be nice to have that Hulu stuff on Netflix available to me immediately on my system versus having to wait for that.
Yeah, this is all good news for people like you or people like Sarah. Sarah's a cord cutter, so if it's not coming over the internet, then it's a lot harder to get a hold of, right?
Yeah, and I understand that this is potentially sort of a messy transition, but this is the way that numbers are going to have to be counted in the future. I think there's really forward thinking on ABC's part, actually. Where there are a lot of us who are watching content. It's important. We're passionate about the shows that we like. And if we're not getting counted via traditional means, then the whole thing is skewed, and, advertisers lose, and they just aren't numbers that can really hold up anymore. So, a single ad buy, I'm sure, is extremely scary for people who have done it a certain way for so many years. But that's just the way it goes. We are using a variety of different devices, and we're watching content in a variety of different ways. You got to do it this way.
Yeah, and hopefully this actually is less scary than the idea of having to have multiple ad buys. At least that's the hope. All right, enough about television. There's an uprising happening. Windows Phone is still, actually, it's Nokia, isn't it, that's starting a protest against Instagram.
Well, it's not a protest against Instagram, Tom. It's a please, please, please make an Instagram app for Windows Phone type of
it's a protest.
Pathetic call to the wild. Okay, so here's the deal. Nokia wants a Windows Phone version of Instagram and has made an app called #2 Insta with love. So it kind of looks like a hashtag that you would see on Instagram, but this is actually an app. The idea is that a user takes a photo within this app, and it applies a Polaroid filter, just one filter, and then also adds the #2 Insta with love little moniker. Nokia says this is all about showing Instagram just how passionate the Windows Phone community is. So the idea is, if enough people actually download this app and use this and take photos, that Instagram will say, aha, millions of people using Windows Phone screaming out for the Instagram app. We should make one. The thing is that there probably aren't that many people doing that, because Microsoft, Nokia, everybody realizes that apps like Instagram that are wildly popular are the sort of thing where if you can't get it on Windows Phone, you actually have potential people not switching over to Windows Phone. Now, sources say that Microsoft is building their own Instagram app, but that requires approval from Instagram itself to get right access so that they can publish photos to the service. Instagram is, kind of a must on the platform. So I read this story this morning, you guys, and I was like, ugh, this is so sad. But maybe this is just the sort of awareness that Nokia needs to do in order to prove that it's a good place to innovate the Windows Phone ecosystem. Brian, what do you think?
I agree with you, and whether or not Microsoft is working in the background to create its own Instagram right now, Microsoft needs to be the target here, not Instagram. Because certainly they've made a point to offer as many incentives as possible to bring these big name apps to their platform, for obvious reasons. So if anybody is going to actually bring Instagram over, and I have no doubt that both parties are at least, it's somewhere along the path of bringing this over to Windows Phone. But if anybody needs to be really convinced right now, it's Microsoft. Offer kind of grease the wheels a little bit to help bring Instagram over there. The one thing I would say about this app that's kind of funny is I think it's almost. We've all made a lot of Instagram jokes in the past about, I think, like adding cellophane to your camera to make it look like an Instagram photo. And isn't that sort of what this is? This is them saying, hey, look at this fake Instagram thing we made. Hey, it's got sepia tone in it. It's almost as good as Instagram.
Well, if you think poor Windows Phone, they're always last, they're always the forgotten platform. Discuss, which is a commenting system that runs on multiple websites and blogs, has come to Windows Phone. Windows Phone was the first to get the Discuss app, not available on iOS, not available on Android, at least at this point. And the idea is that with this app, users can maintain accounts so that if they're part of a, on Engadget, for example, if you're part of a comment thread, you can open up the Discuss app later and kind of see who's, maybe replied to you and continue on in the conversation where you've started them around the web. So it's a neat idea. And Discuss is a very, very widely used commenting platform. But it's interesting that, and apparently one of the developers at Discuss is just really big into Windows Phone and said, well, that's what I did with my time, went to Windows Phone first. So we can't always say that Windows Phone gets left out in the cold, at least when it comes to blog commenting.
Yeah, the app they got, it's not exactly going to change the world. It's like, oh, wow, Windows Phone has this. I mean, the thing is, we've seen Google. They're like, we're not going to put out Windows Phone apps because there's just not a market for it right now. Folks in the chat room are just like losing their minds saying, hey, wait a second. Doesn't Nokia have a partnership with Microsoft that owns a piece of Facebook that owns Instagram? Couldn't they just get everybody together and just say, make us an app? But the thing is that user base just isn't there right now. But then there's that issue of, are they not there because there are no apps or not? The other thing that drives me crazy about Nokia doing this is that weren't they just like screaming about how amazing their camera is on the 920, and they're like, let's put a crappy filter on it. Like, it's this amazing camera. It's perfect. And then they're like, oh, well, just put a filter on it because it could look like a crappy.
I want to try out one of the new Microsoft Skype filters. What do you think? It's the bubble wrap
it needs
filter.
some more square.
Very convincing.
Yeah. It looks it makes your skin look really smooth.
Thanks.
People were going to put a crappy filter on it no matter what, Ayaz. I mean, you might as well let it be your crappy filter, right?
Good point. The crappy filters for all.
Yeah.
Small American flags for others. Let's move on to the randomizer. So CeBIT is going on in Hanover, Germany, and I'm sure there's lots of amazing things there, but this one caught my eye today. It was in our subreddit. The Glass Up wearable display. This thing will only be $399 US, 299 euros when it comes out eventually. The company that's making it is going to do a Kickstarter to generate the funds necessary to get it going, and they're going to show it off at Augmented World Expo in June. So you're like, hey, a $300 or 300 euro version of Google Glass? Not exactly. It's got a little projector built into the side. And essentially what it does is it wirelessly, Bluetooth, pairs with your smartphone and then projects certain things like alerts or maybe documents that you want to show up in a sort of a heads-up display on one of the lenses. So it's a projector that is projecting it onto one lens. Not Project Glass at any stretch of the imagination.
Is anyone else more excited by the fact that there's actually an Augmented World Expo? I had no idea that's a thing.
I think I was too.
That's a thing? Like, I want to see what, like, if this is the one that's getting all the press, what else is going to be there? Because I would like to augment my world all the time. I'm always wearing these glasses. Might as well get some more info in them if I got to keep this thing on my face.
Yeah, I immediately went and added that conference to our calendar.
Awesome.
Because I want to see what happens there. But
well, it's probably a conference that's going to continue to grow. I mean, if the trends stay as they've been. If the trends keep going in the way that they're going, then augmented trade shows and conferences will do really well.
Also, pro tip for Ayaz, if you want to augment your world, actually take your glasses off. Be like a nice Instagram filter.
You're right. It's a great Instagram filter. And also, I'll make sure I take off one shoe so it's kind of a wobbly effect, too. Be awesome. Roll the shutter.
Makes it a lot easier to expand the conference when it just all has to be AR instead of, you don't have to build new conference rooms.
True.
Just update the code. All right, let's see what's on the calendar.
Google Play is celebrating its first birthday. Happy first birthday, Google Play. They're actually offering some deals on music and movies and books and magazine, like 10% discounts off of Hotels.com, $15 gift card from the Google Plus sign-in partner Fancy, 99-cent movie rentals, free song tracks, and much, much more. So happy birthday.
Woohoo! Congratulations, Google Play, on consolidating all of those disparate markets for a year. Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
We got a call from Ryan to 260 TNT Show. He thinks he has cracked what Apple should do with the iPad mini.
From Kansas, Listen to your show every day on my drive home from work. Love the show. You guys were talking about yesterday, what else you could add to the iPad Mini. What about all the full phone features? Not actually call it an iPhone, but an iPad with all the phone features to compete a bit against Galaxy's Note and Nexus 7, which are so popular. Just a thought. Thanks. Bye.
So the iPad Mini with phone actually sounds kind of Apple-like when you put it that way. But maybe that is what Apple does instead of creating a phone with a larger screen. Is that possible? Anybody? Any takers?
Well, I mean, we've heard this, with other manufacturers. The idea, it's like, I mean, if you bundle in some sort of a phone feature for people who just aren't ready or aren't capable of going, Skype only or some sort of other IP telephony solution. I don't know. There's probably a little bit of a market, and if any company can make it sound like they were the first to think of it, it's Apple.
I don't know. It just screams reactionary. I don't know.
Yeah, Leo's been pushing for this for a while.
Yeah, they aren't the first company to think about. I mean, they wouldn't necessarily be in that case, but then again, Apple wasn't the first company to do a tablet. They were just the first company to make a tablet work in a mass consumption sort of way. So who knows?
It does kind of run in the face of what Apple's business plan has been all along, which is don't do everything, just do a couple of things really well. And this is, Samsung is really good at having 100,000 things out at the same time and filling in every possible niche.
Dare you say a galaxy of things?
Galaxies.
Okay, we got a message from Mitesh. She says, "Hey, TNT crew, I was thinking about the YouTube music story that you guys reported and realized it may actually make more sense than the Google Play music service because it would be universal. Whether officially or unofficially, YouTube is available on every platform imaginable, whereas Google Play is limited to Android. This would allow YouTube Music to become a dominant music service. Of course, it's all speculation for now." So what do you guys think of that point, the idea that YouTube is everywhere and Google Play is Android?
I'm not sure it works that way, though, because I know you can rent movies on YouTube, but I don't know that you can play them in all of the apps that YouTube has out there. So it may not be as easy as that. If it were, though, that would be dead simple. You're right. I kind of think Brian nailed it when he said it's going to be the ability to download the song that you're watching on YouTube. That just makes perfect sense to me. All right. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. And thank you, Brian, for joining us. Let folks know where they can follow you online, what kind of stuff you're working on over there at Engadget.
Yeah.
Where they can get more Brian.
You guys know Tim, and you know that Tim would murder me if I didn't mention that Expand is coming up in San Francisco on March 16th and 17th. So hopefully you guys will be out there. It's a consumer electronics show that's actually open to everybody. So everybody's welcome. You can come out to that. And then if you're in Austin, we're going to be at South by Southwest. We've got a Engadget party, slightly confusing, but we'll explain to you the difference between those two names.
Oh, right, because you're all one big happy family now. That's awesome.
Yeah,
well, that's cool.
We spend a lot of time hugging these days.
That must be uncomfortable. Give Tim a hug for me then when you see him. And I'm glad you will live to see another day. Thanks again for being on the show, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You can find us on our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. That is a place to let us know what stories you'd like us to cover. We pay attention to that. technewstoday.reddit.com. Be one of the folks. Even if you only have time to go vote a couple stories up or down, that helps. You can also find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. Pretty easy to guess. You can also give us a call. Leave us a voicemail like we had today, 260-TNT-SHOW. The shorter and the more insightful they are, the better a chance that they'll get played on the show. We will see you tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Until then.